And we are live on Discovery Paranormal. This evening, we are talking about the world famous Gettysburg and the history of Gettysburg, the ghosts of Gettysburg. This is a place in Pennsylvania, major battlefield back in the day, Civil War, where a lot of people died. There was a lot of strife, a lot of pain, a lot of anguish. And now you have these spirits that are all over the place. And they're appearing in pictures. They're appearing in videos. Some of them are interacting with people. There are people who visit Gettysburg who don't even believe in ghosts, and they end up having these ghostly encounters. So I thought it was interesting, and at some point, I'm going to make my way to Gettysburg and go live, and then we're trying to put together a few people to go do it with us and see what we can get a hold of. I mean, I haven't been there since I was a little kid. I think that we were only there maybe once or twice, and then been to places like Valley Forge. My mom was very much into history, and it was important for her have her kids experience these things. So Gettysburg, right? Adams County, Pennsylvania. Adams County. From July 1st to July 3rd, 1863, the Battle of Gettysburg marked the turning point of the Civil War with more than 50,000 estimated casualties. The three-day engagement was the bloodiest single battle of the conflict. How it ended. Union victory, Gettysburg ended Confederate General Robert E. Lee's ambitious second quest to invade the North and bring the Civil War to a swift end. The loss there dashed the hopes of the Confederate States of America to become an independent nation. So this is, a very active place for a small battle, and not including all the skirmishes that went on around the battle. The whole area is alive. It really is. Imagine a 3-day battle of your life, and you are permanently, or at least somewhat, you're attached to a place for an undetermined amount of time, right? And these people are still in their uniform, still holding their guns, doing all that. And I also want to talk about a little later the reenactments that they do there and the provocation from those reenactments, and do you think the place is so active now partially because of that, and it's like they're being called back, or it's a situation. I mean, it looks real. These people are wearing, costumes. Granted, I've seen a lot of these reenactors. They're a little on the portly side, some of them. You know what I mean? You didn't find a lot of that during the war. I think these people were starving to death mainly, or they didn't have much to begin with. But I think probably the only overweight people back then were wealthy. But the reality is, we live in a world that has all kinds of mysterious, things that happen around us, and then we try to, wrap our minds around it. And it comes down to the experience. My experience of something is going to be totally different than your experience. Maybe some of the bits of information will be similar, but how our brains take things in, process things, our senses, it all figures in, right? So, but Gettysburg, okay? Now, Gettysburg, it really is the site of the largest and costliest and deadliest battle of the war. So it was the big one, right? And about 7,058 known dead Union and Confederate soldiers, and upwards of 11,000 missing are believed to be roaming the earth in that area around, some of them anyway. How exactly can one tell if there's ghosts around? I think you can see them. There's multiple pictures, for real pictures, not just pictures that people doctor up. I mean, there's plenty of that out there. But there are just, novices, or not ghost hunters, not paranormal investigators, just people going there. They snap a pic, like a cannon or some kind of memorial, and then boom, there's someone standing next to it. There's people in the photos. You can go online and find these pictures all day long. So now, about 10% of Gettysburg ghost encounters have been visual, with almost 2/3 auditory. The people have heard footsteps, cannon fire, hordes of men cheering, intimate whispering in one's ear. Others have been, like tactile, unexplained taps on the shoulder, clothes pulled, or the sensation of being pushed by invisible hands. Still, others have reported smells with no obvious source: cigar smoke, lilac or rose water, as in old-fashioned perfumes, or the strong and pungent smell of sulfur, a key component of black gunpowder. So, really, it's about all your senses when you're on a paranormal investigation and you're in a situation like that, because you never quite know how they're going to come across to you if they're trying to communicate or you happen across them. So there's basically three types of hauntings I like to tell people when people ask me. So you've got your residual, right? The ones that are just there, an imprint in time, something that is a magnetic occurrence. They're not intelligent. You can't communicate with them. They basically do the same thing like a tape playing over and over and over again, right? Then you have your earthbound. These are entities that have not moved on. Sometimes they're confused. Sometimes they're afraid. Sometimes they're just bad and they're afraid of judgment or whatever the hell they think is going to happen if they move on. And much of the time, the earthbound ones have severe issues, and emotional issues. And when you get into some of the heavier hauntings in people's homes or places, this is what you run into are the ones who are in turmoil, and they will destroy your life if you let them. So then there's the visitations, the ones who have crossed over, who have come back to visit you, visit family members, visit a place. So maybe they want to visit an old appliance. I know a good friend, she had bought this refrigerator from a garage sale, and she said the thing was haunted. And she saw it was a guy, and the whole bit, and her whole mood in her house changed when she brought this fridge in. It turns out the fridge belonged to a guy that died. He probably loved his fridge. And probably, guys like to get up, go to the fridge, get a sandwich, get a beer, whatever the hell they do. Or maybe the guy likes baked brie. I don't know, man. Whatever your float is in your boat, and then in your fridge, right? So, but Gettysburg. So Gettysburg has multiple areas, obviously, where people have had these sightings. So I want to discuss some of the more uh, interesting sightings that have been reported by people out there, okay? And where they happened, in case you're going to go there, have a little ghost map of things that you might, if you know the location, you know what the circumstances are, especially if there's certain dates involved, like when I do a paranormal investigation for spirits, I like going on important dates. If there was a train crash or something happened, whatever that happened within that realm of time, that's the time I like to go. Right. So you have a place called Spangler's Meadow. So just east of Spangler Springs is where hundreds of Union soldiers from Massachusetts and Indiana lost their lives on the morning of July 2nd, 1863. See, in a situation like that, I would go on July 1st, 2nd, 3rd in that zone, right? And I would call out any soldiers here from Massachusetts, Indiana. You want to hit on things from 1863 that they were experiencing in their hometowns, or the just the information that was going on, or even within the war. And once you start talking to them, that's when they start coming forward to you. They realize that you are there talking to them, right? So this says, in this situation, be on the lookout for the legendary woman in white. Now, this is interesting because there's a lot of references. You'll see tens of thousands of hauntings where they describe the person in white, woman in white. We have gotten pictures of these people. It looks like they're wearing a gown, not just plain old clothing. They're wearing some kind of gown, right? And the gown is white. So that's just a common connection between many, many, many hauntings, right? So the since the battle, she appears floating, then bending down, apparently searching for someone. While no one knows her name, some have speculated she was one of the many nuns who came from a nearby convent to tend to the wounded right after the battle. Or is someone looking for someone that they loved, a loved one. somebody who had passed and that was the last place that they were, and they're looking for them, right? Or maybe it was somebody who was working like the nun, or it could be anybody on that battlefield. Women were out there too in different capacities. So how about the Confederate angle? All right, on Culp's Hill is the location of still existent but empty burial pits. And if you listen plea from a long dead soldier still seeking the return home, we've gotten help me. There was a dude who fell in a well. One property we're doing, the Taylor House, actually upstate New York, Clyde, New York, or Lyons, actually, yeah, Lyons. So the guy fell in the well, and they never got his body out, and then eventually they filled the well in. And then there was a guy next door one day who was painting his house, and this is a story that we got, which is why one of the reasons why we did the investigation. So the guy's up there on a ladder, pretty secure. He knows how to paint his house. He knows how to use a ladder. No problem there. He's painting, doing his thing. He says somebody grabbed him from his neck and pulled him off the ladder onto the ground. He didn't get injured, but he was spooked and scared, and he had no idea. And this was just a couple feet away from that well. So then we were in this place, and we were doing our investigation, and then we started talking to the guy, the guy who fell in the well, and I had some brief information just about his looks, what he looked like, whatever. And I'm calling out to him, and he goes, "We got on the EVP, help me," and like that. So there is that out there, and you think to yourself, when they pass, they want to cross over, move on. Your relatives come and shepherd them to the other side, maybe, right? A lot of them are confused, or if there's a light, they're not seeing it, because they're kind of looking away from it. They're stuck in their mind, and they don't know what happened, to them. When they died, it just happened. Could be 100 years. It just happened to them. So that's something to consider if you do these investigations, or if you find yourself in a situation, where you are with a spirit. You're going to know how to communicate with it, and it was a person. So just keep that in mind. All right. So Hospital Woods on the Country Club Lane it served one of the battle's primitive temporary field hospitals. Oh, those places are always really active, man. In a recent paranormal investigation, gifted medium Kyla Miner, never heard of him, reported seeing two officers from the 42nd Mississippi, one named Feeney, the other named Mosley. A Colonel William A. Feeney and a Lieutenant Colonel Hillary Mosley indeed served in the 42nd Mississippi and were stationed in Hospital Woods. Both were wounded at Gettysburg. Other souls are said to frequent Hospital Woods, reportedly kicking doors, turning on lights, and activating electronics, moving heavy furniture around and leaving nail holes in fine furniture. And in one of the homes along the lane, all when the home was completely locked down, let's see, they saw a frequent specter of a woman from the neighborhood who committed suicide years ago, all floating around. So a lot of action, right? And then, sometimes things are tied to the land, these hauntings, and when you build your nice new house on that land, you've inherited something, and those entities are going to be in and around. So you might be wondering why all these spirits are stuck. And that's the big question, I mean, you're talking about emotional tragedy. You're talking about a heavy amount of violence, and it's a war of countrymen against one another too. So it goes much deeper than much deeper than even a war with another country. If you think about it. So, but the physical surroundings, I mean, there's a lot of quartz in the ground. There's a lot of salt mines that run under the ground. If you think about electrically, there's a lot of conductors of electricity, right? So basically, you are going to be in a world of learning if you go there because the history. It's weird going there. The history grabs you. I mean, it grabbed me even as a kid, and it's not just the cannons and things like that. It's the feel. It's the feel of that energy, I guess, and it's not going to change until it changes. And if people keep stirring it up, it definitely won't change. So I'm not saying they should end their enactments, but I'm not a big believer in them. I think that it's crude and savage. It's these are things that you want to put in your history and keep it there. You don't really need to reenact battles against one another of that kind of carnage, especially since all who had suffered because of it. You're not reenacting anything good. You're reenacting something that was terrible, right? So anyway, that's just my view on it, man. Maybe you guys see something different. And I know a lot of these reenactors, like I don't know them, I've met them, and they're always people who I hate to generalize, man, but fat drunks. That's all. Fat drunks would do. I mean, like, I don't know. These guys get very weird. Sometimes they end up getting like possessed, man. I've heard plenty of that, of people in these uniforms, and they actually start fighting each other. There's like real violence that happens out there. These guys get carried away, or maybe the spiritual energy gets inside of them. I don't know. So it just is what it is. So anyway, I'm going to tell you that actually the top 10 most haunted places in Gettysburg. How's that? Top 10. And these are the places. So because I know a lot of paranormal investigations, and they're like, "What do you think of Gettysburg? Are you going to go there?" I mean, I've been there as a kid, never as an investigator. I would like just to go, but I think that it'd be fun to do a live show from there, with a few other people. Be interesting. But anyway, so number 10, top 10 places. I'll start with 10. The Hoffman Mansion. So, like many private homes and estates in Gettysburg, the Hoffman Mansion was converted into a makeshift field hospital as the battle reached its grounds. It's thought that the spirits of Union soldiers still take up residence in the mansion, and visitors to the site have reported hearing disembodied voices and seeing apparitions of the soldiers. It's also rumored that the daughter of a man who owned the mansion hanged herself in the attic after learning that her lover had been unfaithful to her. Her spirit is said to occupy the attic space in particular and makes appearances in photos as orbs or other light anomalies. The Hoffman Mansion can be rented out for private ghost hunts for those looking for a different kind of tourist attraction. You see, that's another thing. It's one thing to stay in a haunted B&B or a haunted hotel. It's haunted, right? Many hotels are haunted. People die in hotels all the time. A lot of tragedy, especially the old ones, all kinds of stuff, right? But if you actually specifically put it out there, okay, you're going to go there and have this paranormal experience, this girl hung herself. It's actually a place of great strife. It's not a fun energy. It's not a happy place. It's a place where people have died, and if they haven't moved on, they're in turmoil. It's not Disneyland, you know, and but even Disneyland has alligators, right? There's something to be said to have respect. I mean, I have a friend who owns a haunted B&B, and everybody knows it's haunted. He tells people, yeah, actually, you're required to let them know that there's something going on. If you sell a house, you have to let people know. If you rent an apartment, you got to let people know if someone died there, right? Or whatever. So, but he's not just hawking it as a haunted B&B. And people go and stay there not because it's haunted, because it's a nice place to stay, you know. And then I know this other person, I only met them once, horrible and rude, owns this place called Rolling Hills, which is an old asylum, and they're very well. Their very being is to have people come. They charge them a bunch of money to let them go through there and try to get evidence off of this. it's just kind of a display of people suffering. And so the woman said, "Oh yeah, you guys should come and do an investigation." I said, "Well, we come to we go to places that we've been invited that they're having trouble with something there and they want it gone." And we never charge anybody, and we just do it unto ourselves, and do our best, and we never left the place worse than how we found it. So I'll say that. And then I said, we come and move the spirits on. Oh man, she got so mad. Like, you better not do that. Oh, you do that. I'll sue you. I'll sue you. That's a cool lawsuit. Take someone in because you moved on the spirits. That'd be fun just to be part of something like that. You know? Exhibit A. I mean, that'd be interesting. But talk about a person who she said that they're happy there. This was a place where they tortured people, man. They did hooked them up to electrodes and did all kinds of experiments on them and basically whatever they wanted to do, not including the attendants there raping and hurting people and doing all that and breaking bones. It was not a fun, happy place, and it was not a place. It was not a wellness center. It was an old insane asylum. A place like that should just be done. Be done. And condemn it. Do what you got to do. Knock it into the ground. Cover it with dirt. Put a memorial there for all the people who lost their lives in that horrible situation. But you don't make it into a situation where you're basically renting them out to these ghost hunters who are coming by, and many of them who are novices. They don't even know what the hell they're doing, and then you get in trouble that way too, right? People going in there with Ouija boards or whatever. Psst, come on, man. So anyway, if you go to the Hoffman House, say a prayer for the girl who hung herself in the attic. So how about the Gettysburg Hotel? See, that's a place I'd go to. One of the town's most paranormally active inns, the Gettysburg Hotel, is thought to be home to a spirit affectionately known as Rachel. Both guests and employees of the hotel believe Rachel is a spirit of the Civil War. She was a Civil War nurse, and many people have reported seeing an apparition of a woman running down the stairs as if to help someone in need. I like that. I like it. It's got a good feeling. Not the girl who hung herself because she was in turmoil, but a nurse who's coming to help you. Love it. Others have reported having drawers in their rooms open or their belongings being rifled through. There's that. One hopes that these occurrences are the work of a spirit and not a thief, though. Hey, hotels, you never know, man. I stay in a lot of hotels. I got a little camera, like a little stick camera. You wouldn't even notice it. I mean, it's so so obscure, and you can put it anywhere. And then as soon as you leave the room, man, the thing kicks on. It's got motion sensor, and at least if someone comes in and takes your stuff, you can see it. It goes through the Wi-Fi, and I can use my phone. So no matter where I am, I could see what's going on in the room. Yep, that's how we have to live these days. So rifling through people's stuff, I don't know about a nurse, but I like the idea of the nurse doing that, and it doesn't sound like a situation. It sounds like someone who's dutiful in their job and who's loyal, right? But it's just cool that you can tell the employees, have they kind of know her as affectionately, and it's not a negative situation at all, right? No demons going on, none of that. So, how about Sachs Covered Bridge? The covered bridges are always weird, aren't they? Always weird going through those, man. Bridges as a whole have a whole weird supernatural stuff going on, man, associated with them. Basically, some bridges throughout the U.S. Basically are homes to nasty entities. A lot of people kill themselves, right? They jump off a bridge, typical, boom, they're done. And then what do you think that spirit is? You think the spirit's down below? You think the spirit, sometimes, right? You think the spirit's up at top? Sometimes they go back to the last place that they were or they know. So designated Pennsylvania's most historic bridge. Remember the bridges of Madison County? Remember that movie of Clint Eastwood? And then 6 or 7 years later, some guy was going around burning down all the bridges of Madison County. Yeah, people are whacked. People are whacked. This is the most historic bridge in PA. This sign, which is there's a lot of bridges in PA, so that's kind of interesting. This scenic covered bridge is rumored to be where 3 Confederate soldiers were hanged for attempting to desert during the Battle of Gettysburg. Desertion was common during the Civil War, especially for people from the South. And because they were fighting a losing battle, is what it was. Really. But and then when they got caught, they got killed, right? So Stephen Crane's famous novel, The Red Badge of Courage, deals with the topic of desertion and describes it in detail, all the consuming terror that soldiers experience at the hands of their fellow countrymen. Sacks-covered bridges said to be guarded by the spirits of the soldiers who were hanged there, and many people have reported a feeling of uneasiness at the site. Others have witnessed full-body apparitions of a soldier pacing along the bridge's length. The Daniel Lady Farm. Okay, used as a Confederate field hospital during the battle, the Daniel Lady Farm has retained astonishing evidence of its gruesome history throughout the decades. There are bloodstains from amputated limbs and even bloody fingerprints visible and the woodwork around the home and in the barn area. One can find initials and other graffiti carved into the beams by Confederate soldiers. Forensic testing proved the legitimacy of the bloodstains in the house, and cadaver dogs have confirmed the presence of graves around the farm. Both the house and barn still show signs of structural damage attained during the battle, and many believe that the farm is the site of several hauntings. The upstairs area is home. Home is believed to be particularly active, and historical records tell us that when the Lady family returned to the farm after the battle, they discovered the body of a dead Confederate soldier still lying in one of the upstairs bedrooms. Yeah. So, yeah, a situation like that, it's not going to be pleasant. People are being amputated, hacked apart. A lot of those bullets back in the day didn't kill you. They destroyed part of your body, and they just, they're big balls or whatever, and, what kinds of ammo they're using. It wasn't good, right? Well, the guns weren't accurate either, not really. So it wasn't good. So just more carnage. And what do you think? You can feel those places though when you go there. You can feel it. You can be like, wow, it's there's a heaviness involved. I was in Salem not too long ago, and there was much the same way. In certain places, there's a heaviness, but the battlefields. I mean, think about it, like Boston, the whole area. There's battlefields all around there where you're going to experience those things, So, all right, that Revolutionary War. Let's see. The Jenny Wade House occupies a unique place in Gettysburg history. Jenny Wade was a 20-year-old seamstress living in Gettysburg around the time of the battle. Her sister had given birth just a few days before the fighting broke out, and Jenny came to stay with the sisters at the house, both because it was considered to be safer, a safer end of town, away from the fighting, and to help take care of the newborn baby. Historical records tell us that in the morning of July 2nd, 1863, Jenny was downstairs making bread for the family when a stray Confederate bullet came through two separate doors and hit her. Man, I said daughters for no reason. Isn't that weird? Daughters. Ooh. And hit her in the back of the head, piercing hit her in her back, piercing her heart and killing her. Her family wrapped her body in a quilt and carried her to the basement of the home, where she laid until the fighting ceased. Jenny was the only civilian to die in the entirety of the Battle of Gettysburg. Her family buried her temporarily in the front yard of the house before moving her. Ugh. Yeah. You bury her in the front yard and then dig her up and then move her. Jesus, man. I guess it was July. Keep them underground. Ugh. That's pretty gruesome, That's reason to haunt just right there. They moved her to another cemetery some years after that. Years. Yeah, just 7 years later. Let's dig her up and move her to another cemetery. Who even makes that decision that says that after how much bourbon? Let's dig her up, move her, and she ain't happy. ain't happy in the front lawn. The sudden, violent manner of her death and multiple disturbances to her grave are believed to have contributed to the hauntings. You see, but it's the sudden death. She didn't even know what hit her. She was there in the kitchen. Boom! The thing went through her back, through her heart. She's done. Right? It wasn't like she sat there in the bed suffering, having limbs cut off and all that other stuff, man. But I'm sure it's also what people are used to going to, and a lot of these houses around, gave food and drink to the soldier, and entertain them in different ways too. It was a big deal, right? They were trying to support on both sides. There was support on both sides, so. But many visitors there to the site have been reported being pushed, scratched, pinched by an unseen force. So how about Gettysburg College? The old college try. Many of the historic buildings around the city were used as emergency hospitals. It seems like the one main thing going on there, and morgues during the Battle of Gettysburg. The Gettysburg College is no exception. Both Confederate and Union soldiers took up residence in the college's Pennsylvania Hall, transforming it into a makeshift hospital. Untold scores of men died from battle wounds, infection, and illness on the hospital's grounds, college's grounds. So it is no wonder that the school has experienced subsequent hauntings and paranormal energy. Many students and professors have reported paranormal activities such as objects moving, flickering lights, sensing negative energies, and there has also been numerous reports of seeing full-bodied apparitions of soldiers around the college. However, it's not only spirits of soldiers which are purported to wander to Gettysburg College. The campus is also home to a spirit known as the Blue Boy, an orphan who froze to death one winter's night while seeking shelter at the college. Hey, let him in. Come on, man. Get a little Blue Boy outside. They're like, no, don't let in the Blue Boy, you bastards. I'd haunt you good. I would haunt you good. I'd go up to those sororities, man, and be in there. Oh no, it's the Blue Boy. All those girls will scream, run out the door. Hey, the Blue Boy. I'll be like, just like that. They're trying to sleep. I wake them up, be right in their face with my Blue Boy frozen ass face. You should have let me in. It's the Blue Boy. It's Blue Man now, baby. Should have let me in. Now I'm gonna haunt you good. I'll follow you home back to the Hamptons. Make your life a living hell. So he was just an orphan who froze to death one winter's night. Terrible, man. Many students have reported seeing the face of the Blue Boy in the windows of one of the college's dorms on cold winter nights. Isn't that sad? In the little face in the window of the Blue Boy? You know what I mean? I'd be like, okay, but you can't let him in because that's the worst thing you can do with a spirit. If they come knocking, you don't want to let them in. The time to let them in is over. You passed that time. So, anyway, speaking of orphans who froze to death, how about the Children's Orphanage? Originally known as the National Homestead at Gettysburg, this orphanage was one of many built across the country in response to the thousands of children who were orphaned by the Civil War. The Gettysburg Children's Orphanage was built with good intentions and had a promising start, but when the head mistress was replaced by a woman named Rosa J. Carmichael, things took a turn for the worse. Rosa Carmichael devised horrific punishments for the children living at the orphanage, even going so far as to create a dungeon in the basement where she chained misbehaving children to the walls and kept them locked up for days without food or water. Still worse was the pit, a small, lightless crevice in the dungeon where children were forced to stay as punishment. Many believe the orphanage is haunted by the spirits of the children who died from disease and malnourishment, while others believe it is Rosa Carmichael herself who still haunts the grounds of the children's orphanage. Regardless, the orphanage is one of the most chilling sights in all of Gettysburg. So, again, why do you want to keep a place like that going? You do it on the sly. You send in your mediums. You have them cross people over. You do your best. You condemn the place. It's over. You know, and put a little memorial there, right, for the people who lost their lives. So number three, we're getting there. The little round top. Okay. At this strategic point in the battlefield of Gettysburg, it's rumored that the spirit of George Washington, the G Man, who wasn't even part of that war because he was well dead by then, appeared before Union soldiers twice. Once to lead them in the right direction before the fighting started, like they're going the wrong way. It's pretty bad. You ain't got no GPS. They have their little compass though. Maybe they were going the wrong way because they didn't want to fight in the battle. Here comes George Washington's ghost. Oh, I am the ghost of George Washington. You stupid idiots are going the wrong way. Turn around. Hey, you had to chase him back the other way. He was known for doing that, in the battle for Manhattan when he was in Brooklyn Heights and they were crossing over from Brooklyn to Manhattan Island. Our troops had no boats and no nothing. England had everything basically, and they actually had him cornered in Brooklyn. They actually, the admiral called the war for the day at 5 o'clock. The soldiers were like, we can get Washington right now and end this. And he just said no. But Washington stayed until all of his troops were crossed to the other side. Then they get to the other side. And then a lot of these guys go running because they're afraid. And then they have these Hessian troops and also these Connecticut regulars, and Washington jumped off his horse and grabbed his sword because the Hessians were paid like mercenaries and they're running the other way. And he was like, get back in the war. He's like, how can I win a war with men such as these? I love that. So I believe his ghost would pop up in the Civil War, tell these idiots they're going the wrong way. Say, hey. Okay. And the second time he showed up was in the heat of battle to spur them onwards. Maybe he just liked a good battle, Washington. You know what I mean? The division commander testified to the president's ghostly appearance, saying, we know not what mystic power may be possessed by those who are now bivouacking with the dead. I only know the effect, but I dare not explain or deny the cause. Who shall say that Washington was not among the number of those who aided the country that he founded? Sounds like a fancy pep talk. I could have done that whole thing in one short sentence. See, they wasted a lot of time back then, man. So Little Round Top was also known as the Valley of Death and the Slaughter Pen because of how many men lay decomposing where they fell for months after the battle has ended. Little Round Top is thought to be one of the more paranormally active areas of the battlefield because of the intensity of the fighting that occurred there and the sheer number of men who fell in the heat of battle. Number two, Gettysburg National Cemetery. You want ghosts? Go to the cemetery. Not necessarily. That's kind of like where their bodies are, but it doesn't mean their spirits are there. I think if you go to a cemetery and you rouse someone, that you're pretty much calling them and they're coming back to be like, what do you want? What are you doing here? So cemeteries are by far more active supernatural hotspots in the region, but the cemeteries are also battlefields. Keep that in mind. Before the cemetery was there, these were battlefields. So, all right. The site of almost 4,000 Civil War graves, Gettysburg National Cemetery is one of the most paranormally active sites in the entire city. After the battle, thousands of soldiers' bodies lay decomposing across the farmlands of Gettysburg. Many soldiers have been buried where they fell on the battlefield, marked only by a wooden board. Rain and wind began uncovering the remains across the city, and they feared the spread of disease. The residents of Gettysburg called for a proper cemetery to be created. Reburial work began around 4 months later. Gettysburg National Cemetery was erected as a Union federal burial place. While the bodies of the Confederate dead were left to their impromptu graves until Southern Veterans Society were able to begin reburial procedures back in the 1870s, moving the soldiers' bodies to cemeteries across the South. The violent, terrible manner of so many men's death combined with a long interim between death and proper burial is thought to have made the cemetery a highly active place as for paranormal activity. The cemetery is also where Abraham Lincoln delivered his famous Gettysburg Address, and he himself noted in the speech, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hollow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggle here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. He gave a great speech, and then blam. See how that happens? See how you know why I don't go to the theater? That's right. That's right. You know why I don't wear stovepipe hats? That's right. And I'm 6'5". It would make me effectively 7'2". Putting that up. Yeah. I already got a duck for tree branches. I don't have to worry about the hat being knocked off my head all the time. It's one of those things. So, number one site in all of Gettysburg, the most paranormally active place is the Devil's Den. Right? The site of heavy casualties and fierce fighting, the Devil's Den is a rock formation that's believed to be the most paranormally active location in the entire Gettysburg battlefield. Some reports say the site is named Devil's Den because it was rumored that the devil, taking the form of a massive snake, lived deep inside the rock formation. That's such a Christian story, isn't it? More than 2,000 men perished in the battle. I mean, because people when they make stories up or whatever they got, they liken to the bigger stories that they've learned in their lives. You know what I mean? More than 2,000 men perished in that battle. They fought to take possession of Devil's Den, and it's believed that the site is now home to several restless spirits. The most commonly reported paranormal experience of the Devil's Den is that cameras inexplicably lose all power and or short out when visitors try to take pictures. Many believe there is a spirit who dislikes photographs being taken at the site. Isn't that funny? These people who wrote this down, what they were talking about. So I'll tell you this, right, about batteries. When entities try to manifest themselves, that's when you lose your battery power. And in the early days, when we used to use just plain old batteries, they would take a hit completely, even the ones on the camera. I'd have a 3-4 hour life battery on the camera that I would use all the time and I could rely on. I know exactly where I was at with that camera all the time. It would take a hit, go down to zero, and actually come back as I was using it, which is impossible. When a battery takes a hit, if a battery's dead, it's dead. It doesn't come back on its own. So once we started using lithium batteries, it would happen a bit, but not as severe. And you would get a hit, but not total, which is kind of interesting. It's an interesting thing. But this happens to many paranormal investigators using their equipment, and then they get zapped, and then boom, everything gone. Or they put, we've gone through, I don't know how many 9-volt batteries or whatever. All right, this one's dead, put it in the bag. This one's dead, put it in the bag. Next day, they're all fully charged, ready to go, like nothing happened. So there is that. So it's a phenomenon, right? It's a phenomenon. So there's apparently one Confederate soldier whose body was heartlessly staged in different positions around the battlefield of the Civil War photographer. Historians discovered that many of the photos taken around the Devil's Den were staged after seeing multiple pictures of the same soldier posed in various positions around the site. As one of the Gettysburg battlefield park rangers put it, if there's a disgruntled spirit in the Devil's Den that has some kind of problem towards photographers, it certainly would be this guy. So what are your thoughts? What do you think about that, about Civil War soldiers? And if you plan a trip to Gettysburg, definitely research it, check it out, get some names to call out to, or just generalizations, or just dress up as George Washington, throw him for a loop, man. Since his ghost appeared, you know, wasn't his era, but what the hell, you know what I mean? But it's more about you know a lot of paranormal investigators get into it because they want to prove things to themselves, and then you want to prove things to other people. He's like, look at this information and check this out. But then you realize that these spirits are us. We're them. They're us. And they're struggling. And also, we've determined that not one spirit has to be in one place at one time. They can move around, or they can kind of like conference call places. Like be here and there, because we've run into that. So it's a learning curve all the time with the paranormal, because there are no experts in the field. When people say they're an expert, that word just means nothing to me when I hear it. There are people who have experience. There are people who have their own interpretation of those experiences, but are they experts? What? Because they've done something for a short time, or for a long time, or for 30 years? I just say they're seasoned investigators. I just don't like the word expert, man, because it hasn't held up. Not anywhere, anytime, anytime, anywhere. So anyway, I'll end the show there. I hope you learned something tonight, and maybe we'll all meet in Gettysburg one day and check the place out, man. And if you're a fan of the show, definitely come to Gettysburg. And you can also support the show. There's a link where you can buy me a cup of coffee if you want, or 2 or 3 cups of coffee. Because you know how I love my coffee, man. But support the show any way you can. We're out here doing this for all of you too, and we're all here together on United Public Radio Network, uprntalkradio.com, 107.5 New Orleans, 104.7 in Pass Christian. And I will say I'll see you guys next week on Discovery Paranormal.